Well, good evening and welcome back to Wednesday Night Live. Thank you, Tom Daniels Collection, for that opening riff. And I just love that lightning strike. You know, with tonight, 36 balmy degrees out there, we might get some lightning. You know, this funny weather we're getting here. Strange weather. Well, as I always tell you every week at this time, I tell you, be sure and have a pencil and paper handy. There's bound to be something that I'm going to present to you that you may want to copy down. I'm going to make a free offer and offer free publications to you as I did last week, and try to encourage you to bring yourself up to date on some things, things that are important to you and to the community. So let's get started. As we do every week at this time, we open talking about Compassion and Hope Pregnancy Center. Now, about 2 weeks ago was Sanctity Sunday, Sanctity of Life Sunday, and many churches in the community had these baby bottles that were distributed to them, and this is it's called the Change for Life campaign, and this is from the Compassion and Hope people. And just briefly, what it says is just what it sounds like. Your change can make a difference. Support the lives of babies and mothers by filling this bottle with your change, bills, and checks, and returning it for collection. Your donations will be used to save the lives of babies and make a positive impact on the mothers. Please join with us in making a lasting difference in this life and the next. So if you see one of these Change for Life baby bottles, put some change in it. You know, that change that maybe you used to put in a jar for your grandkids, but they've outgrown it. I say that because I've done that, used to do that. Put it in the baby bottle. Now, if you don't have one, if you haven't had them distributed at your church, you might contact the Compassion and Hope people at 478-HOPE and tell them you'd like to have some of those for your church, or any organization that you belong to where you have a strong feeling for the sanctity of life, for saving babies and their mothers. So Change for Life baby bottle thing. This is one of only a couple of fundraisers that they have every year. And remember, I told you they don't get billions of dollars with a B from the government, as do the Planned Parenthood folks. These people are about life. They're not about anything else but life. I have a short promo for you from the Compassion and Hope people. Did it die?
Yeah, it's not working.
Oh my goodness. And I checked this at home to make sure it was working, and I just found out it died. Oh my, I'm so sorry. Well, we do have one other. We can use this as a brief introductory promo that it gives a better explanation than I ever could graphically of why Compassion and Hope exists. Why do we have an organization called Compassion and Hope for saving babies' lives and helping the mothers? Josh, how about the other one? Is that one going to work all right? Okay, this is very short, 30 seconds. Watch this. That's from our friends at Focus on the Family. Choice is so beautiful, isn't it? Not like the choice that we see the women's liberation or whatever they call themselves these days. Not that kind of choice. We're talking about a choice for life. So 478-HOPE. I've told you many times I'll try not to beat it to death, but I am passionate about this. Give them a call. Find out what you can do to help save a life, save the life of a mother. And also, as I've said many times before, if you're out and about doing some shopping, running errands, picking up the kids from school or whatever, and you have just a little bit of a lethargy come on in that afternoon, you need a little pick-me-up, stop by and see the people at Double Shot Coffee, 2 locations, Elm and Jefferson. I don't know where I got Roosevelt. Jefferson and Elm and Jefferson, down by the K&B Quick Stop down toward Oak. It's just a simple drive-through. Pick up one of their multiple purchase cards, so you'll get one free. You buy 10, you get one free. Get a cup of coffee, cocoa, whatever it is you like for a beverage. The other one is right next to the Green Tea Room in Chubbuck off of Yellowstone Road. They're at Quincy and Pole Line, that little island there. Double Shot Coffee. And I always tout them because, we don't have sponsors. This is public access TV. But those folks have sponsored through their campaigns help for Compassion and Hope. And last year they did a splendid job. So why not help Compassion and Hope, or help a baby and get a good cup of coffee in the same thing? Okay, well, we're going to try another one. We do have, but wait, there's more. Even though it's January, almost February, and the weather is very odd, today was almost like a spring day, wouldn't you say? It wasn't that cold, kind of raining and sleety tonight. I guess it might snow later, but it sure doesn't seem like winter, at least not to me. It's almost like winters in California, almost. It doesn't snow in that area so much. But anyway, with the advent, soon it'll be spring and then summer, and you're going to have to start thinking, or I hope you're going to start thinking about summer camps. This one isn't working either? What?
It's just data. There's no video.
Is that, which one is that? Which title is that?
I'll try the next one.
What title is that though?
Camp Perkins promo.
Wow, that's weird. Yeah, there should be something going on with the machinery here, folks. Well, that it is live television. It is what it is. Not a whole lot we can do to recover from it, except try to tell you what we were going to tell you. And I was going to show you. I checked this on my computer at home because I've been surprised before. So I checked these things before I brought them in tonight. The next one I had hoped to show you is on Camp Perkins. I don't know if you've heard of Camp Perkins. It's up in the Haley, Stanley area of the beautiful, beautiful area. And gosh, I wish that worked because it could describe it so much better than I can. But Camp Perkins, now don't misunderstand this. It's Camp Perkins Lutheran Outdoor Ministries, but it's open to everybody. It's not open just to Lutherans. It's open to anybody who wants their children to go to a good, clean camp with good supervision, reasonably priced. And they have a number of camps. They have youth camps, and those begin June 15th. But you need to be signed up for that if you're thinking about a youth camp for your children. The youth camp runs from June 15th to August 8th. Now I realize that's 4 months away, but you need to be signed up for that because it fills up so quickly. You need to contact these folks by March 15th. So I realize that's still 2 months away, but don't wait till the last minute. Now you can get hold of Camp Perkins. You can phone them, and here's something you may want to write down if you have children or grandchildren. And now they also have family events, so it's not just for the kids. They have Friends and Family Week, and they have Friends and Family Weekends. They have a number of different, they have adult retreats, and they really use, this Camp Perkins is really well utilized and reasonably priced. And as I said, gosh, I'm so disappointed that those wouldn't play because the pictures are beautiful. Anyway, here's where you go to get more information. Real simple. Camp Perkins with 2 P's, Camp Perkins, campperkins.org. Now that's your website you can go to, get information on there, or you can call them. It's at 208, of course, and that's at 788-0897. And, it says, why camp? Well, you know where your kids go to camp. Form lasting faith relationships, plug into an authentic community, get outside, and engage with God's Word, make new friends, connect with energetic adult leaders, worship Christ in creative ways, dive into new challenges. It's a great camp, and I think you'll be pleased. Give them a call at 788-0897 or contact them at campperkins.org. Well, it's going to give us a little more time than I had anticipated for other things, and that's it's kind of like Monk. When Monk talks about his gift for being an investigator, it's a blessing and a curse. So we have a little more time than we had anticipated, so we can talk, and we're going to keep this Change for Life thing right out there where you can see it. Now, I had an interesting email from a friend of mine, something that I'd never had occur to me. Well, it never occurred to him. And I'm going to just read the email. So I've made a couple changes that has to do with his bank. I changed the name of the bank. It has to do with an investment company that he does business with. Changed the name of that because I don't want to put anybody out there. This is not meant to embarrass anybody or anything like that. It is meant to give you some vital information that you're going to need. I'm so glad he sent this. Now, this was an email, so I'll just read it with the few changes I made for you just as I got it. and it says, a friend recently lost his wife of many years. While attending to the necessary paperwork for their property, he had a real shock. A shock so great that he asked that I share this information with you. He says, my suggestion, strongly tell all of your listeners and viewers, if they have any accounts, contracts, titles, or anything of a legal nature that might be currently titled husband and wife, joint tenants, or tenants in common, immediately contact the source of the entitlement and get the words "with right of survivorship" added to the document. I didn't know this was necessary. With right of survivorship, have this added to your documents that already show joint tenants and so on. He goes on, we have 4 accounts with XYZ investment firms. When I called them to advise them of my wife's death, they froze 2 of the accounts that were held in joint tenancy. I was not told this was going to happen. One was an investment account not tied to any retirement plan. It was this account where our Social Security checks were deposited, where our mortgage payment was withdrawn, where our Medicare and supplemental insurance premiums were withdrawn, and from which I used funds to support my local checking account. You get the picture? So this is his active account. I notified XYZ Investments January 15th. On January 16th, I deposited a check from this account in my local bank account. Tuesday, January 21st, I received a phone call from the bank advising me that my $2,700 check had been returned marked insufficient funds. I don't know if you've ever had one of those. I never have, but I can imagine the shock it would give. Since they had put the check through twice, I would have to deposit cash to make it good. You cannot even come close to imagining my response. After getting up off the floor, I spent 4.5 hours and 11 phone calls to get XYZ Investments to honor the check. They finally did at about 4:00 p.m. Now I have to provide them with proof that my wife died to reopen the account. The funeral home told me that they submitted the info for the death certificates on the 15th, and it would take 10 to 15 business days to go through all the governmental red tape. So he says, tell your viewers to check all of their accounts, even their car registration. So a word to the wise, I had never thought of something like this. I always thought my wife and I are joint tenants. You know, we have the same banking account and the same mortgage. Everything is under our name as joint tenants, or however it is properly done. I never realized you had to have right of survivorship. So a word to the wise. I may repeat that just in case someone forgot to make a note or if it comes up again. Well, we have a number of things to talk about, and we're going to talk about, among other things, that you may have, if you get the Idaho State Journal. I know many of you don't, so I will read the article to you just in case. But I was contacted by the Journal last night for some comment on a bill that's working its way through the legislature, and I'll get to that in a minute. But you know, did you ever see the movie Forrest Gump? A fun movie, kind of dumb, but I mean the fellow that's the character's, well, he's just weak-minded, however you want to say it, but innocent. He's a true innocent, and it's a fun film. It's fun for me in parts because of the music in it, much of it from my youth in the 60s and 70s. You remember what Forrest Gump's famous line was? Stupid is as stupid does. This has to epitomize stupid is as stupid does. Now, this is actually from last November, 2013, from the Daily Caller. Hold on to your seats. Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are racist, but segregated classes are okay. This was by Eric Owens, the Daily Caller. A public elementary school principal in Portland, Oregon, has declared that eating or talking about peanut butter sandwiches is probably racist. She has also instituted a separate but unequal drum class for minority students only. Berenice Gutierrez, the principal at Harvey Scott K-8 school, discussed her bizarre brand of logic in an interview with the Portland Tribune. Quote, "What about Somali or Hispanic students who might not eat sandwiches?" Gutierrez asked. "Another way would be to say, Americans eat peanut butter and jelly. Do you have anything like that? Let them tell you. Maybe they eat torta or pita." Harvey Scott K-8 also offers a segregated lunchtime drum class for middle school black and Hispanic boys only. Participants must be male. They cannot be white or Asian. One parent who wrote to the Tribune anonymously calls the segregated class blatant discrimination and inequality of women, Asians, whites, and Native Americans. This club was approved by the administration, and any girls who complained were brushed off, and it was not addressed, the parent added. The separate but equal doctrine doesn't seem to apply on Gutierrez's watch. The 500-student school apparently offers no drum classes for male students who are white or Asian, or for girls. Nevertheless, Gutierrez has countered that no children have been rejected from the segregated drum class. The public school principal also argues that the segregated drum class isn't actually discriminatory. Quote, when white people do it, it is not a problem. But if it's for kids of color, then it's a problem? The 40-year-old El Paso, Texas native said, break it down for me. That's your white privilege and your whiteness. The Tribune notes that all principals employed by the Portland Public Schools participate in a district-wide equality training program called Courageous Conversations. They always have such clever titles for these programs. The goal of the program is to condition principals and teachers to see their own white privilege, which will lead to an improvement in the academic performance of minority students. Components of the Courageous Conversations White Privilege program include rigorous training, regular meetings, and classroom observation. Gutierrez, like many Portland Public Schools employees, is certified as an affiliate in the California-based program that provides the materials for Courageous Conversations. Harvey Scott K-8 school is about 50% Hispanic. 15% of the students are black. 9% are Asian. Over 80% qualify for free or reduced fee lunches. The school is also terrible academically. The Oregon Department of Education identified Harvey Scott K-8 as among the lowest 15% in the state in academic performance. Stupid is as stupid does. I don't even know what to, I hardly know what to comment on that. You're already making your own comments, I'm sure. I love peanut butter sandwiches. Of course, I understand. In fact, I've been told by certain elements of the community what a racist I am, and they didn't even know I liked peanut butter. Oh, well. Well, one of my personal favorites, one of my personal heroes is back in the news. Again, Sheriff Joe Arpaio. 38 Arizona inmates who defaced the flag eat only bread and water. And this is from CNN by Faith Karimi of CNN. A diet of bread and water is the punishment for dozens of Arizona inmates who allegedly defaced American flags placed in their jail cells. The 38 male inmates are part of the Maricopa County jail system, which is under the control of controversial Sheriff Joe Arpaio. For their alleged unpatriotic acts, the sheriff said Thursday, they'll survive on bread and water for 7 days. Quote, these inmates have destroyed the American flag that was placed in their cells, Arpaio said, tearing them, writing on them, stepping on them, throwing them in the toilet, trash, or wherever they feel. It's a disgrace. This is government property that they are destroying, and we will take action against those who act this way. The flags are part of a push for patriotism in county jail cells that includes listening to the Star-Spangled Banner every morning and God Bless America every night over the intercom system. I love it. At the time, he announced a push to hire more veterans, saying his office employs more than 600 men and women who have served in the military. He manages about 8,000 inmates. Sheriff Arpaio is a Korean War veteran and a big patriot, said Christopher Hegstrom, a spokesman for the sheriff's office. Arpaio's tough, headline-grabbing punishments have earned him diehard supporters and fiery opponents along the way. He's issued pink underwear to the men detained in the county's jails and said he is saving taxpayers' money by removing salt and pepper from prison meals. This month, the county announced that his racial and ethnic profiling will cost it at least $22 million. A court ruled in May that his office routinely profiled Latinos during traffic and immigration patrols. His office has a history of targeting vehicles with occupants of Latino heritage, scrutinizing them more strictly and detaining them more often, U.S. District Judge Murray Snow ruled. Arpaio has denied any discrimination or civil rights violations and is appealing the decision. He was elected to his 6th term as sheriff of the Phoenix area in November 2012. Well, in spite of what the judge says, apparently the people of Maricopa County appreciate what Sheriff Arpaio, I'll get it right, is doing. You know, there's less of this. There's less of this going on now in the city of Los Angeles. It's more and more difficult every day for somebody to go to court and say he picked on me because I'm Hispanic, because the city of Los Angeles is 47% Hispanic, 47% Hispanic. I think it's 12 to 14% Black, 4 to 6% Asian of various ethnic backgrounds, Korean, Chinese, and all that, and I forget what it is. Doesn't leave a whole lot of the bad white guys to pull over the minority Latinos or Hispanics, however it is, whatever is the popular phrase du jour. This is from the Idaho State Journal, January 24th, and it's under the Your Letters section. It's titled Bearcat. And the author says, I was dismayed to read Michael O'Donnell's article in Sunday's paper titled Bearcat to Prowl Area Soon. This is a trend that has become dangerously pervasive across police departments in America. This militarization of our police departments has resulted in hundreds of wrong house raids, homeowners shot dead in their beds, children terrorized or killed, and other gangster-style abuses. It's easy to see how the police officials are tempted by free or cheap military equipment and convinced that they need this equipment. A free people should not have to fear those who have sworn to uphold and protect the Constitution. Are our police being taught that we, the people, are their enemy? If so, they are mistaken. Most citizens support the police and their efforts on our behalf. Josh, can we get that crawler going there? Because I'm going to make an offer here pretty soon, just to help people remember the web address or the email address here. There are many shows on television showing police kicking down doors, roughing up citizens, and acting like the hoodlums they're supposed to be protecting us from, rather than like our protectors. On a regular basis, we see officers wearing black face masks and black ninja suits and conducting midnight raids. This is not the mark of a free republic. Police officers who conduct themselves in this manner neither deserve nor receive respect from citizens. Police are supposed to protect the public against thieves and other wrongdoers. Soldiers are supposed to kill the enemy. I don't want to see the two change places. Let's do away with the idea that police and soldiers are supposed to look and act in a similar manner. There's no need for our local police to roll down our streets in armored vehicles or otherwise conduct themselves like an invading army. Let's not start something that will result in alienation of citizens and police or an us versus them mentality. This was written by Sharon Martin of Blackfoot. Well, Sharon, I share some of this. We have this in common. I have seen, as you have, police raids on various places. Having a law enforcement background, I understand the danger of kicking down a door on a potentially armed suspect. Usually those doors that are kicked are people who that are violent, aggressive, and are more often than not, they are armed. And it's kind of a scary thing to kick a door and go in perceiving that there may be a problem. So I don't have too much to say about the armored vehicles. There is a time and place for them. We certainly don't need them patrolling the streets. This is not Czech Republic or some banana republic someplace. We don't need that. There are times when the police officers very definitely could use an armored vehicle for their own safety. Not every occasion is going to be like the North Hollywood shootout that we saw, 20 years ago. But all it takes is one rifleman or pistol toter with fairly accurate aim, and that armored vehicle sure looks like a good place to be. I don't want to see our police officers going into homes with masks over the face like you see in Mexico. I find that, I don't even know how to describe how I feel about it, but it's not right. Those police officers are there to protect and to serve, not to serve and protect, to protect and to serve the community. And they should not look like, as she said, armed thugs or criminals themselves. So I see no excuse, no reason at all for police officers making raids wearing masks. Now, there are some places where I would say, yeah, they have to. DEA raids when an officer is still an operative in the field or potentially will be an operative in the field, yeah, I understand that. But they shouldn't be all of the officers going in either. I just have a real problem. There is a nexus, Sharon, I think that was it. There is a nexus between police departments and the military. They both, the police departments oftentimes, not all, but oftentimes operate in a quasi-military manner. They wear uniforms. There is a quasi-military mentality that goes with this, and it is necessary for good order, discipline, and to protect the public. I remember years ago, there were several of these tests that were done. One of them was done in Pasadena, where some bright guy got the idea that let's take police officers out of their uniforms. They look too threatening, Gestapoist. They look too militant. Let's put them in a jacket and tie. Well, they tried that, and they had the police officers wearing a blue sports coat with a white shirt and tie. And problem was, people didn't recognize them when they needed to. They didn't see the profile, the high-profile image of the police officer when it was necessary. Police officers, in carrying forth their duties, were mistaken for being other than police officers because they weren't in uniform. So there is a line that has to be, there's a fine line sometimes to be drawn between the military style and too soft an approach. But I agree in some part with her analogy that we don't need our police officers looking like, like the military kicking down a door in Afghanistan, although sometimes it can feel just about like that. Well, enough about that. Let's continue. Now, this is from January 24th, and this is out of the Idaho Spokesman Review. I'm not familiar with the publication, so I haven't read a whole lot from them, but this was kind of interesting. It says, Ion Boise, add the words sponsors say that they've been denied a hearing and will use all permissible procedures to push their add the words bill. This was posted by someone calling herself Betsy, no last name, and we don't know if she writes for the Idaho Spokesman Review or what. Anyway, it reads, backers of the add the words legislation to add the words sexual orientation and gender identity to the Idaho Human Rights Act to ban discrimination in employment, housing, and public accommodations announced today that GOP leaders in both houses have informed them there will be no hearings on this bill this year. Earlier this week, Speaker Bedke said that the legislation is in an arena of ideas and that all ideas deserve consideration and an up or down vote. Representative Grant Burgoyne, Democrat from Boise, said, without explanation, the idea that all Idahoans should be free of discrimination is somehow deemed to be outside the field, he said. We most adamantly do not accept this, and Senator Sherry Buckner Webb and I will use all permissible procedures in this legislature to advance add the words bill this session. We also call on the people of Idaho to contact their legislators on this important issue, Burgoyne said. He and Buckner Webb, co-sponsors of the bill, were joined at a Capitol News conference by an array of supporters of the bill, including Boise City Council President Marianne Jordan, representatives of the Boise Police, I imagine that means Police Department, the ACLU of Idaho, the Pride Foundation, add the words and a bevy of Democrat lawmakers. The legislation has been proposed for 8 straight years but has never gotten a hearing. Idaho's Human Rights Act currently bans discrimination on the basis of race, sex, color, national origin, religion, age, or disability in employment, housing, or public accommodations. At least 7 Idaho cities, including Sandpoint, Boise, Ketchum, Moscow, Coeur d'Alene, Pocatello, and Idaho Falls, have now enacted their own local ordinances to extend those protections to gays. Last June, the Idaho Republican Party State Central Committee passed a resolution calling on the legislature to pass a law invalidating such local ordinances. Buckner Webb said, we must protect all of our citizens from discrimination. It's the right thing to do. Well, Ms. Buckner Webb, obviously I disagree. And I might point out, yes, Sandpoint, Boise, Ketchum, Moscow, Coeur d'Alene, and as you know, last year, Pocatello. I'm not sure the status of the Idaho Falls thing did pass ordinances. I should say that, at least in the case of Pocatello, 4 members of the city council, former councilman who is now gone, and who was at the time council president, as this woman was in Boise, former Councilman Bray, Moore, Eva Nye, and good old Steve Brown voted to pass this ordinance, which it turns out wasn't all that popular with the people who were not in the marathon meeting the night it was passed. As you may recall, those of you who were there, or if you watched it on TV, or if you weren't, there were 150, 200 people. It's hard to say how many were there. There was standing room only all the way out into the lobby. And person after person, almost exclusively from the homosexual community, went before the city council and told of horror stories that were anecdotal. Not one shred of evidence was ever presented. And, you know, it was not, there was previously no big push for these so-called protections in this community. It was nascent at best in this community. There had been peace and quiet and tranquility here for many years until this national push that has gone really full tilt now to bring homosexuality into the mainstream and force it down our necks, make us accept it regardless of how we feel about it as individuals, as parents, as educators, as people of faith. It's being forced upon us. Now, you may recall that I spearheaded a very successful campaign, and I'm not taking pride other than the fact that you, the people, spoke on this so far, where we petitioned for a referendum, which in May will put the question to the whole public, not just those 4 on the city council. And as I pointed out, it's very interesting. Bray is gone. He was the real driving force behind it. He's gone. The people spoke on that. Gary Moore kept his seat by a hair's breadth, and he knows it. I don't think he's going to be deflated. His ego is much too big for that. But he has to have noticed that he came within a hair's breadth of losing his council seat to a political unknown. People are not happy with the way he voted on this. Even I and Brown were absent that. Well, they're not up for re-election anyway. They weren't absent because Brown was the deciding vote. Steve Brown was the one that made sure that this thing got foisted on the community. Craig Cooper was up for re-election, and it looked like he was going to be touch and go because the homosexual community and their supporters and enablers and the liberal progressives in the university, wherever the people come from, they were supporting Amy, what's her face? I can't even remember the lady's name, but she came from American Falls out of the blue. She was their champion, and a couple other people were running, but Craig Cooper kept his seat. Craig Cooper had the courage to stand up for the right thing and say no to the ordinance. Mayor Bladd won by more than 2-1 over former Mayor Roger Chase. Roger Chase had made a very big voice, a big noise about favoring this this ordinance, and Mayor Bladd did not make a loud noise about his stance on it, but it was known that he had voted against the ordinance once, and we can probably assume that he would have voted had there been a tie. And of course, Steve Brown made sure that didn't happen. But had there been a tie, it's likely, we can't say for sure, it's likely that Mayor Bladd would have voted against the ordinance again. Mayor Bladd kept his seat. So this ordinance is not popular in this community. Now maybe there are, Moscow, we know that's a very liberal, progressive community. Boise is getting kind of haywire. Sandpoint kind of surprised me. They're the ones that did this first. I don't think they really knew what they were voting for. That aside, now Idaho Falls was the last one in this that was mentioned, and it got pretty contentious up there. And the same herd that came from all over the western United States, all over this state, from all over the place, that came in here and put the pressure on the city of Pocatello, then moved up to Idaho Falls and did the same thing. I don't remember if it got passed or not because there was still some questions about accommodations. However, in case you weren't aware of it, because you're not going to get this news from the Idaho State Journal, they don't want you to know this. There is a group up there that is working a referendum, a petition for a referendum to either make sure that that one doesn't go through or that it gets overturned, whichever it is. So it's not all peaches and cream. Not everybody thinks that this is a necessary or good thing for this community. Add the words. As I shared with you last week, there were some unhappy people in the homosexual support group that were unhappy because they traveled to Boise to be heard on the Add the Words issue. And they didn't get enough publicity. In fact, one of the local speakers who made this trip apparently either wasn't allowed to speak or didn't speak to a very big crowd. Depending on who you listened to or who you read or whatever you read, the crowd was estimated anywhere from several dozen to several hundred. Certainly not 1,000 people as the homosexual community and their enablers and supporters would have you believe. The fabrication within that community is astonishing. These people, pardon the pun, they're living in a fairy tale world. And they don't mind lying to get them to move their agenda forward, or at least expanding on the truth to get their agenda forward. In fact, they're going to be having a fundraiser in April that Tom, oh, what the heck, I can't believe I've forgotten his last name. The guy that owns Hair Masters here in town, who is certainly not, I'm not one of his favorite people, Tom Nestor. Tom Nestor is putting together a fundraiser, and I'm presuming, don't know otherwise, but I'm presuming that the fundraiser will be to raise money so that the homosexual community, their supporters and enablers, can fight to try to stop the referendum that's going to be on the May ballot. We'll see what happens. All right, let's move forward. Out of the Idaho State Journal, January 25th, just a few days ago. This was in the forum section where they give their opinions, their editorial opinions. Thumbs down to an apparent deficiency in Idaho law that has excused the shooting death of a hunting dog owned by Pocatello Chris Mickelson. Bingham County Prosecutor Cleve Colson said the person who shot Mickelson's yellow Labrador retriever did not do so with malicious intent, which seems to be required before any charges can be filed. A case of mistaken identity, perhaps? Colson did suggest the shooter's hunting license be revoked for improper handling of a firearm and nothing else. It is rather amazing that the person who killed that dog, and there's been a lot of controversy over that, is basically going to walk away with not even a slap on the wrist. I read in the Idaho State Journal, there were several things that came up. One of them was, well, you're not allowed to hunt on the, you're not allowed to just get out of your car and hunt. And the prosecutor said that, well, he wasn't, let's see, how'd that work? He wasn't in the county. In other words, he was on the highway. The highway belongs to the state. I don't think you're allowed to stop on a state highway and hunt either. So I'm not so sure about the motives. And I really don't know. I heard just today, and this is strictly a rumor. Well, I'm not even going to say that. It's just that whoever, the person who did this, how they've remained anonymous is astonishing. It's beyond my imagination. I don't know how they've been able to remain anonymous. I've heard several reasons as to why this person is still anonymous. There was also information that came to me that while this person was being investigated, or they were trying to find out who it was, his white pickup truck that was observed by the victim, the guy whose dog was killed, Mickelson, it was being moved around from people's garages to garages, obviously being hidden so that nobody would find it to tie it back to him. So there was obviously an attempt, if that's true, and this is hearsay, I can't substantiate it other than that, but it was a fairly strong hearsay that the guy was making an obvious attempt to either elude the law or to remain anonymous while the law was supposedly going through the investigation. It's hard to say. It's just amazing to most of us that this guy got away with it. Absolutely. A lot of Idahoans carry a rifle or a handgun in their car. I think most of us understand that if you see a deer or, there's a bounty on coyotes, a bounty on wolves. If you see one of those from the roadside, it's not legal to jump out of your car and shoot them. One of the things that somebody said was, well, what about, what if they'd hit somebody, a resident or somebody that was out hunting? And the prosecuting attorney said, well, the nearest home was, I forget, several hundred yards away or something. Are you kidding me? A bullet will travel lethally for more than a mile. Even a .22 will carry some distance, so I don't know. All right, here's one. This is one of those scratch your head things that goes beyond any kind of reason. Remember last week I said that I did not watch the Grammys. I really am not interested in that stuff anyway. And when they had in their opening segment, they said that the Grammys this year were for all of the women and homosexual, or all of the women and gay men. I thought, well, okay, they're obviously not inviting me, and I didn't bother to tune in. I watched something else. Well, last night during the president's address, and we're going to play something on that in a minute, I got this email and looked it up, and sure as heck, I'm astonished. I didn't realize, maybe you did. I'll just read this, right? It's just a short one from Adobo Chronicles, January 26th. Bruno Mars. I have no idea who Bruno Mars is. Apparently he's some hip-hop thug or something. I don't know. Rapper, whatever his distinction is. But Bruno Mars to officiate same-sex marriage at Super Bowl halftime. This is from New York, New York. Sunday night at the Grammys, Queen Latifah officiated the marriage of 34 couples, including same-sex couples, during the performance of Macklemore and Ryan Lewis's Grammy-nominated song, Same Love. But the story gets better. During the halftime show at next Sunday's Super Bowl, Bruno Mars will officiate a same-sex marriage ceremony while performing one of his earlier hit songs, Marry You. Although the identities of the same-sex couple have not been revealed, there's widespread speculation that one of the partners is a gay NFL player. Well, if they're same gender, then perhaps they're both homosexual. In the past months, plans by NFL to announce the coming out of several gay NFL players have all but fizzled out. But it appears that this is now the real thing. What a way to do it, at the Super Bowl nonetheless. Who cares about the Seahawks and Broncos? Football fans and non-fans are more interested in this year's Super Bowl halftime revelation. Well, I'm sorry to say, Adobe Chronicles, no we aren't. I won't be watching it. If it's in the paper, I'll see it. And I would almost be willing to wager even money that the Idaho State Journal will make sure that whatever it is on the front page. They have been carrying water for the homosexual community now for a couple of years. I always used to give my children my newspaper. They don't like to subscribe to it, so I thought, well, you know, there's no real news in it anyway, so I can share mine with them. So I give them mine every week. My son-in-law finally told me the other day, Dad, he said, we're so sick and tired of every time we pick up a paper, there's something going on with the homosexual community. You know, thank you, but we don't really need the paper anymore. Have you noticed that? For the last couple of years now, every other, if not every day, the Idaho State Journal is carrying water for the homosexual community. All right. The greatest single victory of the gay movement over the past decade has been to shift the debate from behavior to identity, thus forcing opponents into a position where they can be seen as attacking the civil rights of homosexual citizens. And this was from The Homosexualization of America by homosexual activist Dennis Altman. Remember that. Biggest single victory of the gay movement. All right. So here's a letter. This was in the Idaho State Journal yesterday, titled Civil Rights. I'll read it straight, and then we'll talk about it. As we arrive at the golden anniversary of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and approach the referendum on Pocatello's anti-discrimination ordinance, I wonder why we're voting on an ordinance legally passed by Pocatello's City Council. Stop the press. We're voting on it, and this is by Glenn Alford. Glenn Alford, I believe he works at the university. I don't know if he's homosexual, but he is very favorably disposed toward the homosexuals' issues, let's say. Glenn, the reason, or Mr. Alford, the reason we're voting on this is because 2,200 people signed a petition that said they're not in favor of the city council making that decision for the whole community. It's not like they're putting in a new traffic light and all they have to do is sign the papers. I continue. Americans did not vote on the 1964 Act that outlawed major forms of discrimination against racial, ethnic, national, and religious minorities and women. Federal Act, Mr. Alford. It was passed by the House of Representatives and Senate and signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson. Yes, who also gave us the great society that has been draining the purse with his war on poverty for the last, 40 years, 45 years? Before he signed the bill, Johnson was warned by Southern legislators he would lose the 1964 election if he did. Johnson took the risk and faced Barry Goldwater in the 1964 presidential election. There was no risk. The nation was scared to death after what happened to Kennedy. They bought Johnson because they were scared to death. Goldwater refused to vote for the act, saying, "You can't legislate morality." That's right, you can't. Goldwater was wrong, and twice. He lost the election by a landslide, and morality can be legislated. African Americans are employed by Southern businesses and eat at Alabama's lunch counters. There are no more poll taxes. Women fight against glass ceilings, but many have good jobs. Other examples abound. But what of lesbians, gays, bisexuals, and transgender persons? Horror stories from Pocatello's LGBT community, evidence of being fired or evicted because of sexual orientation, were presented to the city council. Correction, no evidence was presented. Anecdotal word of mouth from people who had an agenda was presented. No evidence was presented, not one single piece of evidence. Some council members weren't listening, but enough heard to pass the ordinance on the second try. Soon we vote on the referendum. Well, yes, they passed it on the second try because one person, Steve Brown, abdicated any sort of reason on this because he had not been allegedly predisposed to it before. I digress. Critics of the ordinance see it as a group of people seeking special status and recognition. Duh. That's exactly what it is. The homosexual community has the same protections the rest of us have. There's nothing that, I have to have paperwork. If my wife goes to the hospital, I have to have signed documents to have her in there and to visit her and all that. The homosexuals are always saying, well, I can't go see my wife. The woman is saying that, or I can't see my husband, the man is saying that, because we're same gender. No, that's baloney. That's humbug. But we know civil rights have to do with fair and equal treatment before the law, and citizens' reasonable expectation they will not be discriminated against based on individual prejudice, even the prejudice of a majority. The greatest single victory of the gay movement over the past decade has been to shift the debate from behavior to identity, thus forcing opponents into a position where they can be seen as attacking the civil rights of homosexual citizens. The Bill of Rights promises to protect a minority. Soon we will see if Pocatello endorses the Bill of Rights. So according to Mr. Alford, who is, I believe he's living on our dime, if we vote to do away with the ordinance, then we're all racist, prejudiced, bigoted, whatever it is, and we are certainly not endorsing the Bill of Rights. That's what I call twisted logic. But it is the twisted logic of the left. All right, there are other things I'd like to do, but I want to show you this film. And man, I'm hoping this one works. Josh, we've been, okay, Josh is giving me the thumbs up, so we've been batting zero. I don't know if you watched the so-called State of the Union last night. I can't stand to listen to Obama speak anymore, so I don't watch him. I was so desperate not to watch Obama because it's the same old thing. It doesn't change. That I was watching the horror stories of people who weigh more than 600 pounds and what their lives. And it was very interesting. It was touching. And on the commercial break, I would go over to see if his jaws were still jacking, because he loves to talk. And bingo, I went over to channel Fox News, and he's yakking. And I thought, wait a minute, this is an instant replay from the last time he spoke. Got back to the 600-pound challenge. Commercial came on. I thought, oh, we'll see if he's still yapping. I went over there, still yapping. Same thing. I said, wait a minute, this is an instant replay. Are they just doing reruns of Obama's best speeches? What is this? So, all right. So, to give fair balance to the President of the United States speech last night, we have decided to show you the virtual presidency. How a virtual president, in other words, he's an avatar, or he's you'll see. Virtual presidency, and how do we title that, Josh? Let's see. The virtual presidency, and it's actually talking mostly about the Second Amendment, and we've got just about enough time to run. So, Josh, let's go ahead and run that DVD.
And now, we must turn to the issue of gun violence in America today, because the latest mass shootings in Aurora, Colorado, and Newtown, Connecticut leave us all, liberal and conservative, Republican and Democrat, appalled and disgusted at the carnage. Now, some people, and that includes many of you in this room tonight, want to place the blame for this horror on things like 30-round magazines or semi-automatic rifles. We want to blame something, anything that we can control. But what we really want to ban is violence and murder and insanity. Now, we don't talk about that, though, because deep in our hearts, each of us knows that violence and murder and insanity are built into the human condition and likely always will be. You know, there are two kinds of animals in this world, predators and prey. No one watches a leopard chase down a gazelle and denies that the gazelle has a right to use its hooves and horns to protect itself from the predator. But there are people in this room tonight and all across the country who would deny that same right to self-defense to other human beings. Such people seem to think that the way to stop the leopard is to cut the horns off of the gazelle, that by somehow making it easier for the predator will simply go away. My friends, this is insane. When you make it easier for the predator, you get more predators. So let's start with the so-called assault weapons, more properly known as semi-automatic rifles. In 2011, the total firearm murders came to 8,583, according to the FBI. Now, during that time, the total murders committed by rifles, all rifles, not just semi-automatic rifles, were 323. That's 3% of all murders. Hammers and clubs kill half again as many people as rifles. Hands and feet murder twice as many. And knives kill 5 times more Americans than all rifles combined. Preventable medical errors kill about 98,000 people per year. Medical malpractice kills more than 12 times as many people as are murdered in the U.S. each year. That's more than 300 times the number killed by all rifles, not just the so-called assault rifles. And yet, no one talks about limits on hammers or knives or doctors or hospitals. No one does that because the good we perceive from hammers and knives and doctors far outweigh their perceived harm. And yet, studies show that firearms prevent anywhere from 800,000 to over 2 million violent crimes every year. The lowest estimate means that 100 times more violent crimes were prevented with firearms than the total murders committed with firearms. That's 100 times as many. Now, in October of 2007, Amanda Collins was walking to her car after a night class at the University of Nevada at Reno. Amanda had a concealed carry permit for her 9mm Glock that she carried for self-defense. Unfortunately for Amanda, UNR is, like most college campuses, a gun-free zone. So, like the law-abiding citizen that she is, she did not have her gun with her in this gun-free zone when she was attacked by James Bila. Bila raped her on the UNR campus less than 300 yards from the campus police office. He then walked away, and a few months later, this human predator went on to murder 19-year-old Breonna Dennison. Amanda Collins went on to say, quote, "I know, having been the first victim, that Breonna Dennison would still be alive had I been able to defend myself that night," unquote. Therefore, I am directing the virtual Attorney General to aggressively challenge any gun control laws that violate Amanda Collins' right not to be raped and Breonna Dennison's right not to be murdered. You're not forced to abandon your First Amendment right when you enter Chicago or New York, or your Fifth Amendment rights when you walk onto a college campus. As virtual president, I will veto on the spot without hesitation, but with a great deal of pleasure, any and all attempts to destroy any of the Bill of Rights, of the Constitution of the United States of America. Because when it's all said and done, the Second Amendment to the Constitution is not there to protect us against criminals, and the people calling for gun control know this. That's why they want gun control instead of crime control. That's why they want laws that, at the stroke of a pen, turn law-abiding citizens into criminals. The Second Amendment is there to protect the American people from tyranny. The Second Amendment is there to protect the American people from politicians. The Second Amendment is there to protect the American people from us. Now, some politicians claim America deserves a vote on this issue. Okay, let's have a vote. Those of you advocating infringement on the right of the people to keep and bear arms need to go to the American people with the 28th Amendment, which would simply read, "The Second Amendment to the Constitution is hereby repealed." That would, for the first time, give you the legal authority to do what you have been doing and what you are trying to do now in direct violation of your oath of office to defend the entire Constitution of the United States, not just the parts you happen to approve of. So go ahead, go to the American people and tell them that ultimate power is no longer to be vested in the people who can't be trusted with that power according to you. Tell them only the government can have that power now. You go out there and try to convince the people of the 38 states that you're going to need to get that amendment passed to agree with your opinion of them versus their opinion of you. I dare you. 12 million unarmed men, women, and children were unable to resist being murdered by their own National Socialist government in Germany. Perhaps 50 million unarmed men, women, and children were murdered by their own Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. 50 million Chinese murdered by their own government under Mao, who also disarmed his people. And in Cuba, and in Vietnam, and in the killing fields of Cambodia. Now you say that can't happen here? You say we're protected? By what? By the Constitution that you're in the process of destroying? You are in violation of your oaths of office by so much as introducing this legislation, let alone passing it. My fellow Americans, the previous inhabitants of this chamber watched as 100 million people were murdered after being disarmed by their own governments. Every single one of those men, women, and children were as real and precious and irreplaceable as the children at Newtown. And I tell you here and now that I will be damned if I will let that happen to the American people.
Boy, I'd sure like to see that kind of passion for something that matters come out of the Oval Office of today. Well, we're short on time. Even with the two failed DVDs, we'll try to find out what happened to those because I think you'll find them interesting. So I want to thank you for joining us. Now, a program reminder, every Sunday at 5 o'clock on this channel, Vision 12, Channel 12, Aaron Hayes is teaching Bible history for 700 years of Orthodox Christianity. He's going to be moving into Christian apologetics pretty soon. Fascinating classes. I think you'll be blessed if you take the time to watch them. In the meantime, remember to pray for Pastor Saeed Abedini and his family. Saeed Abedini is still in prison in Iran. Our president and his State Department lied to us. They have not said one word to the Iranians when they could have at their so-called peace meeting or whatever they were. Not one word has been said to the Iranian government to get Saeed Abedini out of prison. So please pray for him to be released safely from prison, that his family will be cared for, that the hearts of the monsters who have imprisoned him will be touched. In the meantime, God bless you. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time, hopefully. Oh, and be sure and send to our email address. I'm sorry you didn't see it there. Pocatello Live, Wednesday Night Live, Pocatello @gmail.com. Send me your email address. I will protect it. I will erase it the minute I send you the information. Just give me an address where I can send it and the name, and I will send you the information I have. God bless you. Thank you so much. Good night.